meeting of the school board of Independent School District 624. I would ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Ellison.
Here.
Master. Here. Stricochi. Here. Absent. Here.
Here.
Daniels. Here.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with our first discussion item, B1. The 2024 primary election polling location. Mr. Marr.
Yeah, good evening, Chair Ellison, members of the board. Just wanted to provide an update for things in the election world coming up for next year. For everyone to be aware of some changes that happened over the summer. Let's do this. As you're aware, part of our annual resolution, we come to the board usually in November to get our polling places that are used in our district buildings approved for the upcoming year. We've done that already for this year. I'll be there, be coming back in November for that regular. We're going to hit the button. Should be good. Yeah. Good. All right. Rock and roll. So we'll be coming up in November for our annual resolution to approve those polling locations. And traditionally in the past, the 4 sites that have been used as of late have been Otter Lake Elementary, Sunrise Park Middle School, our White Bear Lake area ALC, and the White Bear Lake High School South Campus, with regular election dates with an August primary during the end of the summer, midsummer, and then the general election in November. And we work with, we contracted with Ramsey County to provide our election services. It is still ongoing. But just some changes for next year for the 2024 election. There is an added presidential primary that was added in March 5th. We have done, Dr. Gillespie and others as a part of the calendar committee have done a phenomenal job of working our calendar dates around to have non-school days for the kids in the building when our buildings are open for the public like that. And we were not able to get that switched for the presidential primary. It happens to fall the week before spring break. When that arose, had conversations with the city. So it's a partnership conversation. The city ultimately has to approve the polling locations. The county works with us and the city to look abroad in the community to find alternative sites that could also help us service polling locations during that time. And they were very flexible with us to look at places outside of our schools for the primary. So as you look at the chart here, for the regular primary on the 13th, as well as the general election in November 4th next year, will be in those normal locations. But for the presidential primary on March 5th, those precincts have been moved. So instead of going to Otter Lake, folks that reside in that precinct will be going to the Garden House at Tamarack Nature Center. Sunrise Park Middle School precinct will be moved to the Senior Center at Normandy Park. Again, we still have staff, we still have school going on there for early childhood, but we have a secure door there with election judges that'll be housed there to make sure that people aren't going to the other side of the building. So we're secure there. ALC has been moved to Redeemer Church, and South Campus location has been moved to the White Bear Lake YMCA. So this all came about, again, once sites are kind of proposed, the county will send out individuals to go view the sites, make sure they fit certain requirements that they have in place, and then come back to us to make sure that what they found, if it's good or if it's not going to work, we need to look at different sites. So a lot of conversation and cooperation over the July and early August months of the summer to determine those. But ultimately, those are the 4 sites that'll be moved to. Again, it's just for March 5th. So for all those listening at home, the general primary in August and the general election dates in November will be the same location as they have always been, but it's just for that March date for the presidential primary. And then just some things, if people are looking to get more information, everything and anything elections can be found on the Ramsey County website at that link provided there. And then just some reminders for this upcoming election for this year, 2023. Early voting is opening earlier this year. It's going to start on October 20th. They've moved to 18 days of early voting, an increase from the regular 7 that it's been in years past. There's 4 locations that residents can go to vote early. It's the Roseville and White Bear Lake Libraries, the Plato Building in St. Paul, and the Frogtown Rec Center in St. Paul. And just a big thank you to our city partners in Ramsey County for helping us navigate that presidential primary for that change in March. You know, we love our buildings to be used. We love the community to access them and have them there, but being that we have school in session, it was really important for us to make sure we found alternative locations, and they were very open and obviously good to do that. So we thank them for that. Questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Moore? Ms. Thompson?
I know we used to use Onika. Are they using the new building that's behind the Hugo City Hall now instead of
Yep.
the schools
Yep.
up there?
Correct.
Any other questions? Yeah, that was I had a similar question too. Do we have schools in Anoka County?
Technically, I think we have some residents in Anoka County, but they use.
But none of our
They don't
schools
use
are-
any of our buildings for their elections.
Okay,
Yep.
'cause, yeah, none of our schools are in Washington County either.
Onika.
Oh,
North Star.
Onika's Washington County.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Washington, yeah, it's kind of,
Yep.
okay. So do you work with Washington County then as well?
Yep. Primarily, we work with Ramsey County through our contract. but
Okay.
There are times where there are kind of offshoot conversations. We'll all work with representatives from Anoka or Washington to finalize some things, but typically it's through Ramsey County with them. But yeah, since we moved, we used to use Onika, you're right, for many things. And then when the new building was built, they shifted away from that. So.
Great. Any other questions? All right, thank you
All right,
very much.
thanks.
Move into our second discussion item B2, White Bear Lake Area High School planning update. Dr. Gillespie, Ms. Reeds.
Chair Ellison, members of the board, I'm here. I'm excited to introduce Russ Reitz, our new 912 high school principal. He's going to share his vision and the information that he shared with the high school staff with you tonight. So, Russ, I'll move the slides for you as you need me to.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. I've been here now for a little over 2.5 months and had a chance to meet with 70-ish or so staff members one-on-one. Certainly I've leaned a lot on our administrative team, both at the district office and our associate principals at the high school. But I've learned a lot, and the community has been so welcoming to me, and the teaching staff has inspired me in my short time so far. And so I'm really excited about the position. I'm really excited about the future. And I know the scope of work can be overwhelming at times, but I've really enjoyed it so far. So I thought I would just share a few things with you. It's kind of a 5-legged stool, if you would. And so I'll kind of just go through each one, but we'll start with the reason I think our high school exists. And this is something that I've thought a lot about if I ever had a chance to run my own building, but I believe we exist to influence student belonging, student agency, and student efficacy for and of learning. And much of this statement is what led me to White Bear Schools. It speaks to our district mission and vision. It aligns with my beliefs as an educator. And I think it resonated when I shared it with staff that, we really have to focus on our students feeling safe and seen and secure before we can get them to take ownership of their learning, before we can begin to personalize that learning and make it meaningful to them. And then I believe very much in this idea of shared efficacy, that we can all kind of wrap our arms around our students, and together we can help them accomplish more than they initially thought possible. So it's what helped me be successful in my own learning, and continues to be what helps me be successful in my own learning. Number two, if I could describe the type of culture I hope to cultivate for our students, to really define how it feels to be a student at White Bear Lake High School, I would say high care, high challenge. I want to create that sort of environment where our students feel a deep and meaningful connection to adults in the building, that they feel a deep and meaningful connection to their classmates, and then to whatever it is that ignites their passion for learning. It might be an activity, a fine art. It could be certainly a class that they're taking during the school day, but that they feel challenged as well, that we are going to use that relationship that we're building with our students to then also push them to think a little bit deeper, to take it a little bit further in terms of their depth of knowledge. I think once you have Maslow's hierarchy taken care of, you can really start to get to the Bloom's taxonomy piece. So high care, high challenge, I think all teachers kind of fall into each one of these categories at different times throughout their career. You can certainly think back to our own experience in the classroom as students. And, you know, my goal as a leader in this building will be to move our staff into this high care, high challenge type environment for our students. Our 3 is really what will drive much of our decision-making moving forward. I call this our 3 questions. These are 3 questions we hope all students say yes to. So this concept of influencing the yes every day that we're working with our students. So the first one, do I belong here? That's obviously critical for creating that safe and secure environment for our students. Is this meaningful? That's where we're going to get to the agency and the ownership part of learning. It will also touch on how well we can personalize learning and bringing in performance assessment work and a lot of student voice and choice in the decisions that we make. And then the last one is that efficacy piece of can I do this? And so as a staff, each day we'll focus on helping our students answer yes to these 3 things. I'll be the broken record. Our staff and our students are gonna hear these 3 questions a lot in the work that we do each day. The other piece of the common language into creating this culture we're cultivating here is what I call the ROAR acronym. So I wanted to make it sticky. I wanted this to be a part of kind of what White Bear Lake is all about. Oh, sorry, I forgot about these slides.
No, that's okay.
Let's do this first.
Good, I would have found it for you.
Just to, I'm a big believer in leading from the middle out. And what that means is I know I'm part of a much larger system and that the work that I'm doing in the system is going to impact stakeholders up and down our continuum. And so I really wanted to link these 3 questions to our district mission and vision. And so obviously on the next slide, we have some strategic directions. And I placed them all sort of by category into those 3 questions. And so when I say these will guide much of the decision and much of the work moving forward, we'll directly be working on what our community and our district administration has said is important in our system. And so they all fit. And if you had time to kind of read through those, you can see how they fit, but we'll be working with staff through much of this as we dig deeper into each one of these questions and what it means for our work. And the next one is the ROAR acronym. Let's just skip over this and go to ROAR. Sorry.
We'll get to it.
There you
There
go.
it is, okay.
So I think the way we help students answer yes to those 3 questions is through these shared core values. So the first one is relationships. We're going to spend a lot of time building trust between staff and students and between staff and administration, and even between students, you know, that are leaning on each other for how it feels to go to school at White Bear Lake High School. So relationships will be a really important part of what we do. And it's going to change some of the ways we even put our schedule together, like our bell schedule. So we'll talk a little bit more about what that means, but bringing back an advisory period and finding meaningful time within our school day to connect with students. The ownership piece is, I think, going to be something we lean into all the time. For me, it's about taking ownership of our learning, but it's also, we're going to own the data and we're going to own the way in which we present ourselves every single day. And we're going to, as a staff, collectively work with our students on what our expectations are and creating that high challenge, high care environment. Ownership and awareness are also a big part of the 5 competencies of social-emotional learning. And so the way in which we work with our students on relationship skills and self-awareness and social awareness, responsible decision-making, Those are all things that we'll be embedding into our everyday content. And we'll do it through these shared core values of ownership and awareness. And then the last one, respect, is really about looking a second time without judgment. I think we need to model that a lot for our students, and this will be where we bring in much of the cultural responsive learning in our classrooms. In encouraging our kids to understand story before stance. We're going to be up against some pretty tough stuff going into an election year in the fall of 24. And so I think we really need to start talking about how we put empathy at the center of listening and how we treat each other and trying to understand someone's story before we really judge their stance. And so these 4 core values will just be something that we use to teach and reteach our expectations and how we're going to treat one another. So I'm really excited about it. So that's called ROAR, and you'll hear things like run to the roar and the morning roar and all these different ways that we're going to be introducing these core values to our student body and with our staff. And then the last one I'm really excited about, it's the 5 dimensions of teaching and learning. And what I love about this framework is it focuses on the essential whys. It gets us to think more about the student experience and why this learning is important. It speaks to question 2 of, is this meaningful? And so we'll really start, focusing on standards and helping our students understand why this is important in their social and emotional and academic development. And then it gets into the different things that I think are really important in the classroom, student engagement being one of them, and creating this type of inclusive environment for our students so that they can excel in the classroom. And then, of course, there's a strong component to just sound best practice teaching strategies that come out of the curriculum and the pedagogy piece. So we'll lean into that in terms of developing our teachers and getting to those moments in the classroom that are going to really impact our students. The last slide here is kind of all of this in one. And so for me, teaching the common language and being the broken record is really important. And so I wanted to really just get this into one specific slide. And it starts with our vision for the student experience. And so when a student says that I'm happy here, I think we can get to some more meaningful learning. When a student says that I have pride in being a bear, I think we can get to some deeper, more meaningful learning. And then when a student senses that they feel value for who they are over their performance, I call it human being versus human doing, that most students don't feel they belong or feel value until they've done something that proves to someone else that they're of value. And what I'd like to get to is everybody has inherent value for who they are and what they bring. And we're going to get to that performance part in much more meaningful ways. But as you get into the student learning piece and you use those 3 questions where you're hopefully bringing content forward with student voice and choice in a way that students will engage and find themselves in their learning, see themselves in their learning. That will change, I think, the way in which students experience school. And then we get into more of the technical strategies behind teaching and learning in terms of pedagogy and assessment and things like that. But this will be the framework for how we bring staff through much of our professional development for 24-25. So I'll stop there and answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Reitz? And that includes our student liaisons, Ari and Lydia, who are here with us.
All right.
We're so glad that you're here. You are always welcome to ask questions. Ari.
Okay, so my question is just regarding relationships. I know you talked a lot about creating relationships with staff, creating relationships with the students. are you gonna be doing any like relationship outreach with parents as well? Or are you more focusing on like the student and staff part of it?
Yeah, the community outreach is a really important part of this work. And the district also recognizes community engagement and outreach as a important strategy. So they'll absolutely be part of that. And there's different ways to do that. There's a lot, I'll bring forward several opportunities prior to the school year starting and during the school year where we're inviting our community in to see the awesome things that are going on. So through like open houses and ramp up days. And so for sure, building relationships with parents would be really important. Good question.
Any other questions? All right, Mr. Ifoji.
So these statements on this pyramid, inverted pyramid, would they be used to gauge where the students are as part of student surveys or something?
Yes. So we'll talk about action plans and school improvement plans and things, but one of the strategies is a goal would be that all students can identify a staff member that they have a meaningful connection with, that they have a class or an activity that they feel strongly connected to. And we'll use that data to assess how we're doing in that belonging piece. And certainly some student interviews and the street level data that I think is really important to understand, so asking those questions of our students casually and then formally in a survey format will be really important. And the same is true for, is this meaningful and can I do this? I think all three will need to be evaluated, right? We evaluate what we value. So that'll be a really important step. See how we're doing.
Ms. Thompson.
Sorry, just to add on to that then, I think one good thing that might be a possible thing for students to answer is whether they feel on your care and high challenge chart, like to show that to them and see where they put themselves. I think that would be interesting to see where they feel and then maybe like later on how they feel and see if there's a difference there. I really like that. I've seen it before. And I think it's a good way of showing how high care and high challenge together really can produce good results for just anyone in general, but in this situation for our students.
Agreed. So I was just showing the slide that we skipped over on Can I Do This sort of has that student-friendly language, right? Where you could have students look at this and say, how does it feel? And they could kind of pick that category and they're the same. It's high care, high challenge. So I think the listening sessions with students, and doing it through the lens of these three questions will be super powerful. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think can be vulnerable at times too, but I value humility and vulnerability in leadership. Those are that's how we get better. And so having students, evaluate how they think we're doing in these three questions, I think is going to be really important work.
Any other questions? Oh, Ms. Daniels.
This is not, it is related. The two buildings, because they've been in existence for like 40 years, I'm sure they have different climates. I've been in those buildings many times and my own children went here. What do you see as like just a challenge in your 2.5 months, just merging those two climates together? I mean, I know that's a really big job because we have two big, I don't know, like cities because they're very different. And so you have to find that, how they merge and just what would you say would be like one thing that you're really working on?
Yeah. So for me, it was making my thinking transparent and establishing trust. And you do that first through relationships. And I've been sharing a lot about who I am and why I lead and why I lead the way that I do. And encouraging staff to share their story with me. But for us, when we unify, the opportunity to really get to know one another. The two campuses have operated fairly independently of one another, and we're going to come together and be anywhere from 16 to 25 staff members in a department. And so that time within their department and then as a full staff is going to be really important. And we've set out some professional development days this year where we'll bring staff together. And much of that time is about building trust and focusing on relationships with one another. I think of the same way I do with students in that we can kind of use that acronym to focus on relationships and to own the fact that everybody says, well, Russ, you have a really big job. And I know it's a big job, but I always change it to we have this big job where we're coming together to unify this, and we're doing it for our students and for our community. And trying to identify that we're going to be part of a much bigger system, much bigger than ourselves, and taking pride in this idea of legacy building. We have an opportunity to do something that hasn't been done in a long time. The last time a new high school opened, I think Chanhassen and Eastridge opened the same year. So we get to kind of do something that most teachers in their entire career don't have an opportunity to do. And if we own that and that experience becomes something that we're really proud of, and we're also aware of each other's own, there's going to be bumps in the road. We're going to have adversity as we unify. So I just really think those four core values can really help us come together and unify. So it's not just for our students, right? And then the other thing I've said to staff is I want them answering yes to if they belong here. I want staff to say, yes, this is meaningful to me. And I want staff to say, yes, I can do this. And so, this education philosophy or that vision is really important for our students, but I think it's equally as important for our staff as we unify the two campuses. So super fun challenge.
Yeah, thank you. It helps with understanding. Are you bouncing between the two buildings? Are you focusing on one or the other, or moving back and forth?
Yeah, I'm 2 days a week at South, 2 days a week at North, and then going every other Friday.
Oh, okay.
And my schedule kind of dictates where I am more often. But so far that's worked out really well. And so I hope that continues for the rest of the school year as well. But I have offices in both buildings, yeah.
Thank you.
Dr. Newmaster.
It looks like an excellent framework and goal. And I'm just wondering, I'm sure it's in there, but where is the part where the kids have input as to how they express things or how they describe what an expectation would be for them?
Well, so first in unifying the campus, there'll be lots of listening sessions that we provide to our student body, so I can gain insight into what they want to bring from both campuses, right? And I'm really excited to see how homecoming goes, and so we can capture some of those moments and bring those moments forward. I'll be meeting in our world history courses over the next few weeks, just to introduce myself to our junior class, which next year will be our first senior class. So they'll get to know me a little bit, and then with that will be an invitation for them to come forward and join a student committee to talk about their point of view in unifying the campuses and kind of what they're thinking. And then moving forward, we'll have opportunities through the 3 questions. So I'd like to create a staff sense of belonging committee. I'd like to create a staff, is this meaningful committee, and can I do this? Where we're intentionally meeting with students and talking about those 3 questions and having them share their experiences with us. We'll also work on best practices in the classroom. I'm a big believer in assessing students, but also asking them how sure they are in their answer, and sharing more information about why they answered the way that they did. And I think you get a lot of student input and feedback when you do those types of things in the classroom as well. So we'll have We'll have student groups. We'll have students be part of our announcements in the morning. We'll do video announcements next year. There'll be a lot of student voice and a lot of student opportunity to share with each other as well.
Right. Wonderful. It's really exciting. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. And we'll move into our third discussion item, B3, American Indian legislation update. Mr. Shavers and Mr. Patton.
Good evening. Brent Shavers, Director of Educational Equity. And I really enjoyed Russ's presentation just because, and Ari's question about family engagement, because as a department, that has really been our focus this year. That is our focus, is how do we engage our parents into our educational settings. That acknowledgement, welcoming environments. As a department, we visited every school this year already as a group, and just to walk in and get a feel of the welcoming environment that are starting in our office staff, how that feels for everyone as parents coming in or just as visitors in general, and just reporting back to the building principals how that felt. And I talked to Russ today and just told him that North and South Campus, that you walk in the South and it's just like, oh my God, you feel like you're the main center of attention and just welcoming, and the same to North. So I just wanted to let him know that as they're combining those schools, it's awesome to be there. So thank you, Ari, for asking that question. So with that, the American Indian legislation that was passed this legislation session, so there's some new things that are happening. So Vincent Patton, our Indian Ed coordinator, will share those.
Hanawashte, Buju, Ozawazimi, Guandijan Kazo, Ho Many Miigwiches, Avenugin Sug, Chair and board members, I am happy to be able to speak to you guys today about this. There's a more detailed version that I've handed out, so you click on through and we'll talk about it here. So the first big one is on that first one that's highlighted, is talking about requirement of Indian Ed or native language or culture classes, right, this upcoming year. Obviously, it was too late to get on the course catalog for this year, but it's really exciting because I've been in education for 10 plus years now. And seeing the leaps and bounds that we are able to now see from this current governorship within MDE is really growing the American Indian education across the board, because really in all aspects, Indian education is just education, right? It's for everyone. It's not just for our native students, it's for everyone. So this first statute that got pushed through is this idea of classes. So if you have over 100, right, then you're gonna have to have a class for our Native American students or any student that wants to join that class. It could be culture, language, but what we are doing here at White Bear, we're supplementing with an outside organization that's widely known, nationwide known, Migazi Communications, that are coming in and they're giving and working with groups in the middle schools and high schools right now. We are, Brenton, even with teaching and learning, we are trying to think about adding this to the course catalog for next year though. Would it be a very specific high school class that would be able to get credits, language credits, general ed credits, history credit even, to even within the middle school. So that's the first kind of exciting news. We are sitting at between 150 to 160 Native American students here at White Bear. So we obviously qualify for that second part where we are required to have a dedicated class, but right now we are supplementing with that outside organization. So it's not like an official class. So that's the first big one. The second big one is on the second page of that, the other highlighted. And we as an equity team have been working very, very diligently right now, trying to crank out 8,000 lessons. So all our elementary schools are covered. So those 4,000 students are good. Literally just sent out the middle school lesson plans. So they are happy and getting ready for it. So on October 9th, that was historically Columbus Day, has shifted to Indigenous Peoples' Day, right? And part of this legislation, there needs to be at least 1 hour curriculum that is delivered in each school across the state and district that would encompass one of these or anything that is Native American, right? A little side note with this though, because this was passed in July, right? So me and the Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, we have a very tight relationship, and she guided me over to MDE's head of Indian Ed Commissioner, and one of our Native American APAC members actually works at MDE too. So one of our parents works at that Indian Ed. So we have that inside track. Most districts, large districts, are not able to get this done. So us as White Bear, we should be proud because we are on the front line of this. We are doing it this year when most of these major districts are not, right? But so that's kind of what my job was focused on for the last, I would say, 90 hours, give or take, is getting all these lessons together, get them sent out, videos, thank you, Betty, with these different ideas, right? So we can deliver quality, high quality lessons for our students, K through 12, right? So those are those are the two big highlights from there. There's other legislation out there like sacred tobacco, right? Students are able to carry that sacred tobacco on them, which is already within our policies, to the graduation regalia that's already within our policies. That hidden one is on that second page, page 2 at the bottom, is this Indian education for all. That is not this year. It'll be closer to that 2025. And I just kind of want to put that on your radar that it will become, from the climate that we are in currently, a graduation requirement, which every student will need to take a semester credit. However, they're going to label that through MDE as a required class for them to take some kind of Native American studies. So, but that's not for 2-3 years even. So that Indian education for all will not be coming, but put it on our radar. So there's other ones, mascots, there's other different ideas, but yes, if there are questions, I would love to answer them, and we'll give you the best we can. So.
And when Vincent said the equity department has been working on that for 90 hours, his words for Vincent, has been putting that together. He's done a great job with all the lesson plans, K through 12, with that, working with the different departments as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you. So
He got his teaching, what did he say? That teaching itch was satisfied through putting all that together. So.
All right, Miigwech, any questions from anybody on the board for Mr. Patton or Mr. Shavers? Oh, Ms. Thompson.
I had a question, just a comment from our meeting we had the Wednesday night, last week already. Would you just mention to the board, the Armory had reached out?
So that's a secondary thing that isn't quite legislation, but we are in partnership with the White Bear Lake Historical Society right now. They wrote a grant to the History Center, Minnesota History Center, down in St. Paul. They received this nice large grant where they want us, right, Indian Ed, to be able to bring people from our community, Native people from our community, to help curate and create a chunk of the armory, a corner of the armory as Native history. The second part of that comes with that is the idea of education opportunities, right? So like curriculum development, professional development for our teachers that we could easily ask them to be a part of when that is complete. So that that's a very fruitful relationship that we're having right now, and we'll see how it goes. It's in the very, very early stages, so the grant runs through until next July, but chunk by chunk is getting done slowly but surely. So
Thank you.
Ms. Daniels.
Just wanted to thank you for all your hard work. Sounds like you've done this worth of work this fall. And then, am I remembering it correctly that we had our district, all districts had an increase in funding for Indian education and for our Native American parent advisory group and for them to, so that's increased a little bit this year?
yes, so the old numbers that used to be was 20,000 for the first 20 students. But now that got bumped up to 40,000 for the first 20 students. So $20,000 increase for the first 20, and then every student after that, in the past, it was only about 250, 237 or something like that. But now it's for every student after 20 is 500. So the state budget that we received this year from MDE directly is 99,000. So there wasn't an increase within federal, which that number was sitting around 12,700 received this year. So we're just about that $110,000 budget for Indian education in our district this year.
And that'd be for like language classes and other classes and curriculum
And supplies, trips, events, you know, all those things for our students, right, and families. So
Thank you.
And Vincent has done a great job of reaching out to families. It's the 506 form, I believe, that families have to fill out to identify that they're native and that and the tribe that they're associated with. And he's, because that's where the funding comes from with those numbers that he was mentioning. So he has done a really good job of reaching out and trying to get those numbers increased as well. So
it's all based on.
Dr. Arcand.
I just had a question on the 1 hour school program that you
Yes.
guys provide.
Yes.
How are we reaching out to our high school students? Because I know that there are a smattering of classes. Are we reaching out to all of them? So they all have an opportunity for this, or how do we do that?
So working with our high school principals. So right now it's currently housed. So how we're going to do it with high school is because I am a licensed teacher. I am working with Domshot and Hensley. They are both ethnic studies teachers at South. And then we're going to be working with the two ethnic studies, that they're at North. And then I'll be working with the two ethnic studies teachers at South. So currently with that, they'll get their full hour, right? Here's the challenge though with that, right? Within the high schools is that with students do not have to take ethnic studies, right? They're not required. They sort of are required because it's like mixed with ethnic studies / American history, right? So that's where we're housing it this year. As this continues and continues to grow, I do hope that when we have a unified high school and we have these different aspects that we can do, we can make it a day. We can make this a real celebration of learning and developing this curriculum that we all have a part in saying and creating together. So, but this year is housed in ethnic studies for high schools.
Because the concern I had is that we're only going to hit one small part of the population if it's just one class. So for the other 3 years, students don't have the opportunity. Right. And so I was wondering how we were going to reach them.
Right. So so they have 150 students at North, and then they have another 120 at South that will be able to hit within that time frame. Then the idea is how are we going to make this happen with and where should we house it? Should we house it in social studies? Should we house it in like a bear time? You know, it's kind of hard with bear time if students are leaving. English, it could maybe. Social studies, it could, but that's economics, geography. It's kind of a tricky spot to place it. So as this grows, I really do hope that, you know, at our unified high school, even next year, that we will be having more buy-in from our principals, right? And staff members across the board to be like, hey, even though I'm teaching ELA, everybody at 12 o'clock at that class period will be teaching the same thing. So
it really comes to that collaboration, putting with teachers once we get past this year with that as we move on.
Thank you.
of course.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much for your work. Appreciate it. And we will move into our only operational item, C1, action on certification for 2023 payable 2024 preliminary property tax levy. Ms. Johnson.
Good evening. Each fall, school districts work closely with the Minnesota Department of Education to ensure that the levy for the upcoming year accurately reflects the revenue that will be levied upon district taxpayers. There's a lot of back and forth that happens between district staff and the Department of Ed staff as we review the 39-page document that calculates our levy for the year. In fact, the document that you have this evening as a hard copy is hot off the presses as of a report dated 3:47 p.m. this afternoon. So it takes a lot of review on behalf of both us and MDE staff to ensure that the calculations are flowing through correctly. And we get a new report often daily with just fine changes that are happening because of either an error, update to a calculation, those types of things. So due to this refining process, in September, we asked the school board to approve the maximum amount of the levy for the for this year, it'll be the 23 payable 24 proposed preliminary property tax levy. And that revenue will be revenue to us as a school district in the 24-25 school year. Preliminarily, we're estimating an increase to our levy of around 7.6%, which is there's two main contributing factors to that. One is related to our long-term facility maintenance revenue that was part of the plan that you approved in July. And the other is related to our debt service fund, which is where the revenue comes to us to pay essentially our mortgage payments for the debt that we have on our school buildings. Ellers put together a preliminary tax impact on the handout that shows that this will result in a slight decrease for district taxpayers, assuming that home values have remained stable. So we'll continue to work with the Department of Revenue or the Department of Education to make sure that revenue is calculating correctly. And then we'll bring forward the final property tax amounts to the school board for approval in December, where we present the annual truth and taxation hearing as well. So with that, the recommended action is to approve the maximum for the 2023 payable 2024 proposed preliminary property tax levy.
You've heard the recommended action. Could I get a motion to approve? Motion by Ms. Daniels and a second? Second by Ms. Straifoji. Any questions or discussion?
I just had a quick question.
Dr. Arcand?
Trying to understand, looking at this, can I get a quick explanation of why the property taxes at the residential have dropped? Is that what I'm reading correctly? Just trying to understand that.
Yep, because the revenue gets spread across a higher value of property taxes in the school district. So that's multitude of reasons. Increased property tax values might be some of it, but also new development of new houses and businesses within the school district spreads that cost amongst a greater wealth.
So it's shared.
Yes.
Shared expense.
Yep.
Good question.
Thank you.
So just to clarify, Ms. Johnson, because I had a similar question to Dr. Arcand. So the increase is over 7%. That will be coming to the school district, but the property taxes, for the most part, for residential, will be going down slightly.
Slightly, yep, assuming home values stayed the same. Now, everybody's home value situation is different. We can't make assumptions on that. But if your property value stays the same, you'll see a slight decrease.
Okay, thank you. All right. Seeing no further discussion or questions, you've heard the recommended action, and we have a motion and a second. This will require a roll call vote. I would ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Ellison?
Aye.
Newmaster?
Aye.
Strikeoji? Aye. Thompson, aye. Arcand?
Aye.
Daniels? Aye.
And the motion passes. Thank you. With that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Adjournment.
Motion by Dr. Arcand and a second. Second by Ms. Daniels. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And we are adjourned.